welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we're taking a little deviation from the black belts that we have had on for the past several episodes, but not to say that this is going to be any less of a guest. This is a fantastic guest coming up. We have for you, he's a blue belt. He's a Masters 4 competitor, just like Anton and myself. But what I am actually most keen to talk about is his day job off the mats, which is he's a dog trainer. So welcome, Brent Dry.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Anton, for having me on, number one. And I may be the lowest ranked person to ever come on, so I'm pretty proud of that.
For the record, you're a blue belt, is that right? You're a blue belt.
Yeah.
You got some stripes at least, brother, or not?
I've got the one stripe, mate.
Okay,
so at the moment.
We're gonna see. We'll have to go back through the.
Now we've had a couple of white belts. We've had white belts on.
True.
We've had no stripe blue belt. Yeah, definitely not the lowest. So we're not about that.
Yeah, you may also have the strongest beard game we've ever had on the show, brother. So.
Yes.
Well, I think that's probably. I'm not necessarily known for my jiu-jitsu. I'm pretty sure of that, but I'm pretty well known for the beard. So
I saw Dave Hart called you a doomsday prepper.
So Dave Hart, after my match on Friday, Dave Hart, there's video of this, right? It's a bit muffled, but I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines of, I think Brent is half Wolverine, half hobo. I think he's stockpiling guns and canned food.
Oh, that's so good.
True. Although you're far too healthy looking, Brent, for to be a doomsday prepper, in my opinion. You've got the healthy glow of jiu-jitsu. So tell us, how did you get started in it? What made it cross your path?
As a kid, so obviously born in the 70s, but growing up through the 80s, I wanted to do a martial art, and I grew up in New Zealand. So karate was probably the main thing. So I'm like, hey, let's do karate. And my father went, what do you want to do that for? Just punch him in the nose. And I'm like, I don't even know how to punch anything. So that's definitely not going to work for me at all. So I never did any martial arts, but it was always something for me that I wanted to do at some stage. And I got to a stage where I think I had the time to be able to dedicate myself to a martial art, and I think jiu-jitsu was just something I was hearing a lot about. A lot of guys in the dog training world do jiu-jitsu. There are some of the best dog trainers in the world who do jiu-jitsu. So I found that really interesting. I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time, and Jocko Willink, who's a pretty famous guy now on the circuit and around about, he obviously is a massive proponent for jiu-jitsu. So on my 45th birthday, I started jiu-jitsu. Well, a week before or so, I started jiu-jitsu. So That was my gift. That was my gift.
I love this, man. Someone said to me the other day, and it really rings true for me, like everything you do in life, you're either robbing from your future self or offering a gift to your future self, right? And it feels like on your 45th birthday, you gave yourself an incredible gift for your future self, brother.
And every now and again, the body sort of thinks, what are you doing? But I think long term, it's paying off, and it's. I find for me, I know that we hear these stories a lot of the time, like jiu-jitsu saved me, and jiu-jitsu did, these amazing things. I never kind of had that. I didn't need to be saved. Like, I'm a lucky enough person where my world that I live in it's pretty amazing. I'm very, very lucky in that way. So that it didn't save me, but the longer I'm doing jiu-jitsu for, the more I see this whole, jiu-jitsu is life comparisons that people put up. I mean, you guys have been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time now, and you guys have seen a lot more of that than what I definitely have. But I think the longer I do it, the more I see it. And then the more I'm like, okay, I kind of get those perspectives.
Yeah, awesome, man.
It was interesting you said that you waited till you sort of had time in your life. But if you don't mind me saying, 45 or, just before turning 45 is fairly intimidating age to start something like jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's intimidating for someone who's 25 to walk into a new club. How was that for you?
Well, I felt like I was 44, so it was pretty good. No, no, I'm quite a tactile person anyway. So there's going to be people on top of you. I'm like, oh, that's okay. Like, I don't care about that sort of thing. So that wasn't an issue. I started at another gym before I went to Dominance, and it was kind of this fun, hey, come on, very welcoming, really open sort of place. So my first 12, 18 months of jiu-jitsu, it was just super welcoming, and it wasn't too intimidating, and the guys on the mat were friendly and welcoming. So that was actually a really nice stepping stone. I think if I went straight into a gym where it was just massive comp mindset or really, really hard, it might have been a little bit different, or not. So, but my path for me, it was literally just going in, hey, I want to try this. I signed up, and just literally just went from there.
It's an interesting point Kim raises. Like, do you think 20-year-old Brent Dry, if you can remember him, versus 44-year-old Brent Dry would have been more, like, which version of you would have been more confident to go and start something new like that, do you think?
Definitely the older version me. Yeah, absolutely. I think through age, I think one of the things that I'm lucky enough is that we go through trials and tribulations, and good things that happen and bad things that happen, and we realize through going through them that this isn't the end of the world. Whether it's losing family or loss of relationships, or moving to a different state or country like I did. There are things that there are times where you've just got to jump and trust that you're going to land on your feet, Anton. And I think that was something, as somebody a little bit older, I had the trust that I could do that. But when I was, maybe younger, maybe I didn't. In saying that, like, I bought a one-way ticket to Australia when I was 22 or 23. So that was a big jump, but always that thing of like, hey, I can always go back.
Yeah. Whereas you can't go back from jiu-jitsu. Once you've done jiu-jitsu, there's no going back, brother.
No,
I don't know. The dropout rate's pretty high. It's still a lot of people do leave and don't come back.
That's true.
Sorry. Yeah. Go on, Brent. Go.
Yeah. So for me, I think being older and being more of a, let's just kind of put time aside, which is all I've done. The difference between me and 20-year-old me is I actually made this a priority for myself, and I put work around jiu-jitsu. So, if I'm out training dogs and somebody's like, hey, can you do this time? I'm like, no, sorry, I can't. And in my head, I'm like, I do jiu-jitsu then.
Yeah, actually say it. I say, I can't, I have jiu-jitsu then, man. So
yeah. So I literally make that a priority for me. And anybody who trains jiu-jitsu, which is probably,
all of our listeners.
95% of the listeners, and for this 5% of people who just own dogs, hopefully, right?
Yes, it's true. Yes.
4 weeks time of doing jiu-jitsu.
Just use Brent's promo code, everybody. Brent Dry Dominance.
So I think it's really nice for me to be able to prioritize something that I'm passionate about. But the other thing about why I got into jiu-jitsu, so I was a chef by trade, and I started an apprenticeship when I was 16. Left home when I was 16, started an apprenticeship, and then that was awesome. And I worked at some very, very good places. I worked at some amazing restaurants. I was the head chef or executive chef of a hotel in Papua New Guinea. So lots of different experiences in and around that. Then I left cooking and started working with dogs full time. And, I have a good name in the dog industry, which is very, very nice. But I wanted to be a student again. And I think that was one of the most attractive things for me is being a student and learning. So I think that is one of the things for me in regards to jiu-jitsu, being that person down the bottom where you literally know nothing and you're just asking questions and just trying to soak it all in. That was a very, very good lesson for me, because as a person being younger in a chef's environment, I would have younger people or newer people to the industry asking me questions. And if I didn't know it, I would literally just bluff my way through it, you know, whereas now that I'm older, I'm so much more comfortable in sitting there and saying, hey, I don't know. That's a really good question. Let's figure this out. So I think, Anton, to sort of circle all the way back, one of the things that I'm probably better at now being older and having started jiu-jitsu a little bit later is actually sitting there and being more confident and saying, hey, I don't know. Like, number one, blue belt, don't ask me anything, right? So I'm not here to teach, and we have an amazing, you know, group of people who I train with, you know, obviously with Lincoln Hancock and Ivan and Ronnie and Kieran. Like, these guys are, for me, they're amazing role models and they're brilliant at jiu-jitsu, and I can ask them these jiu-jitsu questions and they always have the answers. Whereas as a chef, and not so much as a dog trainer, I was very, very good as a dog trainer at asking, hey, I don't know that, let's figure this out. Or I'd go off and research and come back, or I would try things with my dog and then I'm like, okay, let's work on this with your dog because I find that this works. So as a guy who is a little bit older, I find that being more comfortable saying, hey, I don't know, it definitely helped me.
Or potentially looking bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or giving somebody, you know, terrible advice, which really isn't ideal in a kitchen, in a dog environment, or in jiu-jitsu. The fish is fine, mate. The fish is fine. Good.
Just lick the boiling oil to measure its temperature. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And Brent, you mentioned your club. You were at Thomastown Dominance. Tell us about that. Like, that obviously has an amazing culture, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, I'm very, very lucky. I find that I have the ability to train with guys like Link. So Lincoln Hancock, you guys, I know you've had him on here. I've listened to those episodes a few times.
Cool.
One of the things I love about Link is it just seems that he well, it doesn't seem, he does. He cares so much about jiu-jitsu. He cares about the competitors. He cares about the kids. He cares about the people who don't compete. He loves jiu-jitsu. And then that leadership that he shows on and off the mat, it goes right through the whole club. So I find Link very, very technical. So I consider myself a teacher. So as a chef, I was teaching apprentices. As a dog trainer, I teach a lot. So watching Link do what he does, he's a very, very good teacher. He has a very good way about him. He remembers everybody's name, which I have no idea how he does that. That's phenomenal. But he's very technical in what he teaches. He's very structured in what he teaches. So I like that. I actually met Link years ago when he was the president of the American Staffy Club.
Amstaff.
There's a big breed-specific legislation issue, and he was sort of, at one of the forefronts of that. So kind of met him, and I looked at this guy walking along, and I'm like, dang, this guy looks fit and lean, and but he just had this beautiful presence about him. So when I started to train with Link, and the whole crew, to be honest, whether it's at HQ or Bentley, the whole Dominance crew are really, really good, and they stick together. Yeah, and they support each other. But then you broaden that to the whole jiu-jitsu community, right? And I think that's the nice thing about what you guys are doing. And I've had the little bits of absolute, catch-ups that I've had with some of you guys at comps, all of those sorts of things. It's fantastic. But for me, the Thomastown crew are fantastic. I'm very, very lucky to be able to train there. I really am.
Absolutely. I love Link. I've got a personal relationship with him. He was my son's coach. All the way through the kids' worlds and all of the comps and everything else. Like, Link and I are like, he's a brother to me, that guy. And yeah, he's a very powerful contribution to the entire jiu-jitsu community, man. Always great to see.
You know what, Anton? It was really funny. I was at the Pampax on Friday, and I was maybe a meter and a half away from Link, and I looked down and there were these two little kids, and Link is just having this conversation with these two kids, and they might be like 7 or 8 years old, you know, and he's just stopped everything. He's having this conversation. Then they turned around, they walked off, and I'm like, I've never seen those kids before. Like, they're not part of our club, but they obviously know Link through something, and and he stopped. He gave them all the time in the world. And I think, you know, he's a very, very special person in regards to those sorts of things that he does. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good place. I'm lucky.
So was it luck that you ended up at Dominance and recrossing Link's path, or did Link at the Amstaff kind of stuff, all that stuff, get you into Dominance? Like, how did it work?
No, it was a little bit of luck. So my main training partner that I've had pretty close to when I first started jiu-jitsu, who is a dog training client, strangely enough. So a guy called Paul Matrenza. So
Paul, he comes to monthly masters. I know Paul. He's a good guy.
And Paul's been down the traps forever, right? So I pick him up on the way to jiu-jitsu, and he tells me, you know, all these stories about training at Hannah 4 back in the day. So he went up to Thomastown. He said, you know, why don't you come out and try it? So I went out, barely got through the warm-up. I'm like, geez, this is pretty tough. And then, you know, I just saw from the club that I was at, and then the difference to Thomastown. The club I was at was very, very good, and it was more along the fun kind of route, whereas I think I just started to get a little bit more serious. Plus Paul, who was, you know, really my main training partner at the time, he started to train there. So I kind of, you know, jumped ship, and it's probably one of the harder conversations that I had, because I had to have this conversation, right, with my previous coach. And I just turned around and said, look, you know, I'm going to be leaving the gym and going somewhere else, and I want to thank you for everything. And it was tough. It was because it's a relationship breakup. Yeah. You know, you know, I'm not going to train here. Can we still be friends? You know, that sort of thing. And I'm really lucky because the guy he's an awesome guy. I've got a lot of respect for him, a lot of time for him. We still catch up. I still go down for open mats. And there's no, you know, certainly no animosity. And, you know, I thank him for the start that I got in jiu-jitsu. And as I said, you know, maybe if he didn't have that way about him, then I may not have continued. So, I thank him for that.
That's awesome. I think that, I mean, I wonder what you were saying earlier about being a little bit older. A lot of people, unfortunately, do need to break up with their coach or leave their club and have that conversation. And I'm just wondering, do you think it might have been your maturity that made that situation a little bit easier? Because I know a lot of younger people, or not even younger sometimes, but a lot of people struggle with that conversation.
So true.
Yeah, Kim, I agree. I think it would have been, you know, been a little bit old. You know that Link calls me the oldest man in jiu-jitsu, right?
Oh man,
that's harsh, because it's so not true. I mean, it's not true. Anton, I don't know if you know, the way I know Brent is that he faced Theo in the Absolute of the Vicks, or was it the Nationals earlier this year? Can you talk us through that? Because Theo's actually our editor of this, so he would kill me if I didn't ask at least one question about him to you on this episode. So,
how strong did Theo feel? How very strong did Theo feel?
He didn't feel strong because he was literally just on top of me for 5 minutes. He stepped back. I fell down. He fell on top. And then we stayed there for 5 minutes.
that was a ballsy move, though, Brent, to pull guard.
That's all.
Oh man,
it was really funny because you know, obviously we'd seen the brackets, and I kind of looked up him, and he looked up me, and at the time he's sitting there, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, what do you weigh, sort of roughly, and he's like, oh, 135ish. I'm like, oh, okay. But so I'm 80, so I'm like, this is fair. But it was a fun match, you know, like part of me is like, I think he just took it pretty easy on me. And I could actually hear you, Kim, going, what were you doing? I think it was like, go to mount. He's got the wrong knee up. And I'm like, oh, I've got the right knee up. I'm just trying to get away a little bit here. But there's an
wow.
amazing photo. There's an amazing photo at the end of the match where Theo is like, he's on his knees, but kind of up, and on my knees and down. And the guy just looks like a giant. So when people sit there and say, what's jiu-jitsu like? I show them that photo and they're like, oh, you must have been so brave. Because when we stand beside each other, we're the same height.
Yeah.
But he looks like Thor. He's like, it's a bit but again,
so
like, you know, that's that master's bracket. I don't know if it's the master's bracket or if it's just jiu-jitsu, you know, like you have your match, or before your match, you exchange pleasantries, you have a bit of a laugh and a bit of fun. And I'm super lucky that, you know, I get to catch up with Theo at all the comps, and he's a champ. Yeah, I really appreciate him and his friendship. He's really good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, Kim did well there. I gotta say, like, when Kim started dating this Theo guy way back, it was just like, who is this guy? She keeps talking about him, you know, what's he like? And then she brings him into the scene, and then she gets him into jiu-jitsu, and this guy has like quickly becomes super popular, man. So yeah, you know, he's
okay. Enough of the loving now.
All right, well, let's talk about your arm then, Kim. I want to talk about Kim's arm. So Brent, you're in the bullpen, right?
Oh, man.
You're in the bullpen.
This is Brent's time. Stop talking about me. Anyway, go. Yeah, I know.
Brent,
it's burning you up,
Antoine. Experience, including Kim's arm, please.
All right. So I didn't actually see what happened to Kim, but I knew that Theo was actually on the match before me. So I'm in the bullpen and I'm just trying to wait for Theo's match, and he's not out there. And I'm like, oh, I've got heaps of time. Like, I'm just chilling out. So I keep looking. And then they're like, hey, Brent, you're up. I'm like, wait. Where's Theo? He's meant to be on.
Yeah.
So I go out and have my match. And then later that night, I put a post up, and sort of Theo said, well done. I said, mate, what happened to your match? I was meant to be like after you. You were my cue to kind of start to pump up. And he's like, oh, I ended up taking Kim to the hospital. And I'm like, no, what happened? So, yeah.
So just in a nutshell, I mean, this is going to be old. By the time this is released, unfortunately, Brent, it's going to be a couple more weeks. So this will be old news. But
you'll be healed and competing again probably by the time this is out.
Let's hope. Jeez. Well, I'm in a cast at the moment. So yeah, I went in from anyone who knows me knows my love for half guard, and I went in for a deep half guard sweep, but I kind of left my arm behind. And I guess anyone who knows me as well knows I don't really like to tap. So I was thinking, no, I'm all good here. I'm okay. Got up, got my 2 points, and then we sort of stood back up, and it was Gustavo who was reffing me. He said, "No, you're done. Stop. Go get medical attention." And I said,
wow.
Why? And I said, no, I'm all good. And he goes, no, you're out. You can either stand here and I'm going to raise her arm, or you can get off the mat and I'm going to raise her arm. That's how he said it. And I was like, okay, you don't argue with Gustavo.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I went off the mat.
Even know.
No, I was kind of like, what? Because the adrenaline, you know, you're so like, I felt something, but you know, it wasn't like, I just thought it was, you know, in the moment or whatever. So, but then I got off the mat and I said, okay, Theo, no, we'll wait for you, do your match, and then because it was about 2 hours early, and then I'll be good. And then I said, oh, gee, my arm's hurting a little bit though. Let me put some ice on it. So the guy had given me ice, and I took off my gi, and then I took off it was a long sleeve rashi. And then instead of my elbow pointing the normal way, it was pointing backwards. So then I looked at it, and Theo looked at it. He nearly threw up. And I said, we better go to hospital now. Sorry. So yeah, we went, and I said, just drop me at the door and come back and do your division. And he said, no way. There's no way I can compete in this state. So so that's basically
what a woman.
it.
Like, okay, what kind of man and what kind of woman? That's amazing. First of all, that you want him to go back and compete, but also
for no other fact than we paid nearly $400 for the 3.5 minutes that I got on the mat. Jeez, the IBJJF.
Yeah, you know, you literally get the crowd into shock, Kim. Like they were shocked.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe in time it'll become like that Tammy Muscamensi one and Michelle Nicolini, you know that. But that was like the final of Worlds. So really, stupid. Should have tapped. It
was amazing and well done though. And like, I'm just surprised you didn't feel it. Like that just blows me.
I'm feeling it now. But circling back to Brent. How do you stay injury free? Like, if you don't mind me saying, as a Masters 4, what are you doing right to,
is it daily?
stay
I'm
on the
going to
mat?
guess it's daily dog walking. That's what I think it is. Take it away, Brent.
That's a good question. Paul sits there and says, like, that I just can't be killed. So maybe it's something like that. I think, I don't know. I try to stay relatively healthy. I train, 4 times a week. I don't overexert myself too often. I tap early because, on the mats, hey, Kim, tap early.
Don't be like Kim.
Yeah. So, and look, to be honest, I have been really lucky with injuries in jiu-jitsu. I think in the first couple of months, like, I popped a rib or something like that, and that was a bit sore, and I had a bit of a sore knee for a while. But other than, like dodgy fingers and that sort of thing, I've been really lucky. So, and I've been able to stay on the mats. Even when I was a little bit injured, I'd still go down and figure out a way to roll. And I think, to be honest, the rib one was just, I breathe really shallow. So when you're not used to having your ribs compressed, I think my ribs are like, hey, what's going on? So something just kind of happened there. But, I don't know. There's certainly nothing specific.
Maybe it's that maturity. You were saying you're a bit older. You don't sort of
Less
push
ego.
through beyond, the 4 times a week or whatever, or on your actual rolling on the mat and stuff. So, yeah, maybe it's a bit of that.
And I wouldn't say I have a physical job, but I don't sit down all day. I'm kind of moving most of the day, with dog training and that sort of thing. So, I think that definitely helps, having a job where you sit down for 8 hours and then you get up and you're doing, some high level impact sort of stuff. I think that might be a wee bit different. So that might be a little bit of a bonus for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, we can talk about the dog training. Oh, Anton, were you
No. That's
totally
fine. Let's switch to dog training, Kimbo. Let's do it.
I've been waiting for this. So, well, yeah. I mean, how does it relate? Do you find that what you use in your work life translates on the mat, or totally separate?
No, it's really interesting, and I see it from a couple of different perspectives too. Actually, I see it from a learning theory point of view. So, as for instance, let's say Link is coaching, I can see how the way that he coaches then relates to the way I coach somebody training their dog. So I think that's something that's really important. And I also think that there is more than one way, was it Masashi who said there's more than one way to the top of the mountain, or it's either Masashi or Link, I'm not sure. But
similar caliber of human being. So.
Look, I don't know.
Either God or Masashi or Lincoln. I'm not sure.
I don't know. But one of those guys, right? And it's very much the same way in the dog training world for me, that, there is more than one way to train a dog. There's more than one technique that we can use to get a similar result. So I think that's an important thing for us to understand. I think other things like skill acquisition, we learn with distractions, but they need to be low-level distractions. So let's say if I'm training a dog to recall to me, I can't have the dog off lead chasing rabbits and then go, hey, I'm going to practice my recall. I need to have practiced my recall, over and over and over and over in low distraction environments. And then I increase the level of distraction and then increase the level of distraction. So relating that to jiu-jitsu, it's the similar sort of thing of like, okay, I'm going to practice an armbar, and then, with no resistance, and let's do it with 30% resistance, and then let's do it with 50%, and then let's hold drill it, and then we're going to roll live and see if I can get to that spot to hit the armbar. And then in a competition, it's like, hey, why don't you hit that armbar? I'm like, oh, what armbar? I can't see an armbar, because I haven't put those, I haven't gone through those levels of distraction. And it's very much the same for a dog. So with dog training, I always tell my clients, we need to be understanding of what levels of distraction, what layers of distraction there are, and then work up from there, or work down from there. Ideally, the first time your dog hears, like, let's just say it's your recall word, it's not when there are 30 things going on. Maybe there's just one or two, and we're trying to condition the word to mean something good. And I take a lot of those types of learning into jiu-jitsu as well.
Very interesting. I got a question. So, like, I found that feeding off what you've just said, a lot of my distraction was not out there on the mats. It was like in here for me, like I have had to do a lot of personal work in order to have less and less distraction over the years. Some dogs must inherently have a lot of inner distraction, Do you have techniques in order, like with a dog, like when they don't speak a language, you can't really work through the past, you can't deal with things. How do you deal with inner distraction in a dog?
I think one of the best things to actually acknowledge, Anton, is sitting there and saying, okay, what type of dog do I have? What is the thing that they have this intrinsic value of doing? Like, what is the dog's instinctual goal? Is it to chase and eat something? Cool. Well, let's use something like that as a reward, where the dog can chase a ball or chase a tug toy, and I can give them that outlet as a reward. And I suppose in some ways we see this with, Kim, you would have seen a lot of this of, people coming into the gym who, all I want to do is fight, or they've had, these occasions where that they have this confrontational approach, and then you can channel that into jiu-jitsu, and then 2 years later, the last thing they're thinking of is walking down the street and having a fight. They're like, I get the satisfaction in the gym, right? And it's the same for dog training. If I can give the dog the thing that they value the most, and then they see me as part of that reward system, then they start to choose me. So the easiest way I can train a dog is by the dog seeing value in what I have. And if I don't give the dog any value, then they're going to see rolling and duck poo more valuable than me going, hey, come and play this game with me. So I think that's an important thing for us as a dog trainer, or as dog trainers, to really acknowledge that these are the things I want the dog to do. And I need to be accepting of, maybe that's not what I want the dog to do, but if the dog sees the reward, and that is the reward for the dog, and I'm like, hey, no, this is rewarding for you, it's not my decision, it's the dog's decision. Yeah. So if my dog, this is one of the things I see a lot. People try to reward their dog for, let's say it's a recall. So the dog comes running in, and they're like, oh my God, what an amazing recall. So they grab the dog and they put their hands on the dog's face and they mush their face, right? And the dog's like, what are you doing?
That's not my thing. That's not my reward.
Like, we're not playing AFL. I want to play check with you. So some dogs aren't tactile. You think you're rewarding the dog, but the dog doesn't deem that as a reward. The dog's like, that's not what I want to be doing, right? So I think in regards to that, we've got to. This is part of the crossover that I see between jiu-jitsu and dog training, right? And that's that whole pass to the top of the mountain thing. I need to know more than one way to hit an armbar. I need to know more than one way to get a dog down into a drop position, because I'm like, hey, this technique always works until it doesn't, or until the dog has a different type of motivation. And then I need to find, okay, what's motivating for this dog, right? So I think that's a big part.
Wow.
Awesome.
You're profound, man, especially for a blue belt with one stripe.
We'll need to have you on again when you get your purple or somewhere along the line. We'll try and raise it up. But we are nearly out of time. Do you have any final words of wisdom? Because you've had many, and yeah, just any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I got a couple of things if I can, real quick.
Yeah.
I think in dog training, in jiu-jitsu, there is a thing called successive approximation, right? So in dog training, it's when the dog does something close to the behavior that I want. So the behavior is not perfect, but I can reward that behavior. And for me as a training partner in jiu-jitsu, I try to do that. Especially when we're in this learning or teaching learning phase. So for instance, if somebody goes to sweep me and it's like, that's never going to work, I won't just fall over. But if they hit the sweep and 80% of it's really good and the technique was good, then I'll reward that effort and the technique, with being swept. So then the same for a dog. If I can start to get the dog closer to actually where I want them to be, then the dog starts to perfect that behavior. So I kind of consider that a lot with training partners, but also in myself too. So that's probably the main one.
I love it, man. I'm going to use that
Fantastic.
tonight. I'm about to go and teach a class of beginners right now, man. I'm going to reward what is it? Something approximation. What did you call it?
Yeah. So successive approximation. And then the other one is what we call in dog training is backwards chaining. So for instance, backwards chaining would be a dog sitting in front of me with a toy. I start there, and then the last thing I would be doing is throwing the toy. The dog runs out, picks the toy up, and then brings it back to me. So it's the same sort of thing. If I can, if I'm in closed guard and I have a cross collar choke, I start there, finish it. Now I have one hand in the collar. Now I know how to get the other hand.
I see.
Now I just start in closed guard and I work from that. So backwards chaining as well, mate. Just try that one.
Thank you, man.
Awesome. I'm going to go backwards chain with my staffy now, and we will have this episode out in a couple of weeks. Would love if you could share it, Brent. That'll be awesome.
You guys are both amazing. I can't believe Kim's still pepped up on drugs and she's still here. Brent, you're amazing. Thanks for coming on the show so fast.
See you, Brent.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.